do forget to do that. So welcome. As I said, my name's Debbie Longland and I work on a project called Careerpilot, which is the main part of today's session, and it's jointly been organised by ourselves at Careerpilot and Sun. So my colleague Abby, who hopefully you can see at long last, and she's going to do the sort of introduction to today's session, and then I'll do the main bit about what Careerpilot is, and then Abby will finish off at the end and we'll take questions. If you have got any questions throughout the session, if you can just type them into the chat box. I have muted your mic, so if you did have a mic, I've just turned them off for now, because what sometimes happens is you get some feedback on during the session. So if you have got a question, please feel free to type them into the chat box as we go along, or there will definitely be time at the end for us to answer those questions. We should probably be on for about 30 to 35 minutes, but we can stay as long as we need to get any questions covered. So John's just currently typing, I can see. So, oh no. Okay, so Abby, I think if you want to start us off and then we'll go from there.
And feel free to interrupt me if you need to welcome people. Thank you very much for joining today. As Debbie said, my name is Abby. I work for the Southern Universities Network. I'm based at the University of Portsmouth. So at the Southern Universities Network, we work a great deal with Careerpilot to implement their resources in the work we do with schools and colleges, and it's been really successful. So Debbie and I are looking forward to sharing more about how, as careers advisors, you can maximise Careerpilot when working with students. So in this webinar, we'll be covering our three main objectives, which are to build an understanding of Careerpilot in the context of the Sun offer, so how we utilise Careerpilot in the work we do. And the second objective is to, as careers advisors, how to make the most of Careerpilot for one-to-one and group sessions. And then the third objective is how to access additional resources. So for those of you who don't know, the Southern Universities Network is part of the National Collaborative Outreach Programme. At Sun, we are a partnership of 6 universities across the South, so the University of Portsmouth, the University of Southampton, Solent University, Bournemouth University, Arts University Bournemouth, and the University of Winchester. And we've been given 3 aims and objectives by the government, which are listed in the turquoise box. So they are to double the proportion of young people from disadvantaged backgrounds in higher education by 2020, to increase by 20% the number of students in higher education from ethnic minority groups, and to address the underrepresentation of young men from disadvantaged backgrounds in higher education. So the measures of overall success will be young people progressing on to higher education, so whatever the mode of study, doing a university degree, an apprenticeship or a degree apprenticeship, HNC, HND, any higher education qualification. So at Sun, we've partnered with Careerpilot, and Careerpilot offers impartial information and support on the different routes to higher education study and different job sectors. They also include an online tracking tool that schools can use to track students' career interventions and progress. This is free for schools and colleges and is available for years 9 to 13. And at Sun, we've also developed a Year 10 Careerpilot workshop and one-to-one Careerpilot sessions for Year 12 and 13 NCOP students. Now I'm going to hand over to Debbie, who will be able to give you more information on Careerpilot and how, as careers advisors, you can maximise the use of Careerpilot.
Oh, thank you, Abby. So I've just welcomed Lynn to the webinar. So welcome, Lynn. Hopefully you can see us and hear us okay. And if you do have any questions, you can type them into the chat box, which hopefully you can see on your screen. So as I said, I work for the Careerpilot project, and I've been doing that for the last 3 years. So Careerpilot is a free website that's aimed at 13 to 19-year-olds, and it's really for the whole of the south of England. So year on year, the number of people using the site has increased, and we get lots of positive feedback from staff, students and parents. So last year was our biggest year, and part of the reason for this is because we paired up with 6 NCOPs across the south of England. with the sun being one of them. So we've got lots and lots of people using the site. And what we found that when we've collected the feedback is that students perhaps who wouldn't have known about all the options available to them have used Careerpilot to find out more about what there is available to them. So that's really pleasing for us, because part of our aims and objectives is to try and make sure that everyone can see all the options open to them. And obviously that fits in with the NCOP aims of trying to get more young people to reach a level 4+ qualification. So as I said, we've teamed up with 6 NCOPs across the south of England, and they help to fund the developments on Careerpilot. But not only that, when we were set up back in 2011, there were 12 universities on board who again fed money into the development, but we've now increased that to 20 because all of the local universities in the area have realised that by using money wisely, they can fund the development of Careerpilot and help to meet those aims of trying to get more people to choose the right options available to them. That's not to say that because universities are funding our development, we're completely biased towards university education. We're completely impartial, and hopefully the more you use the site, you'll see that we don't just talk about HE, we talk about the whole range of options from finding work to voluntary work to apprenticeships. So we're really pleased that we've had that funding. The funding has helped us to develop. We started off with just the student site, which any student can use free of charge. And you can also just go on freely and use it just to see how they're using it. We also have the reporting zone, which I'll talk a little bit more about because that was new in 2018. Then we've got the advisor area of the website and the parent zone. So I'm not sure how many of you have already been using the site or how much you know about it, but obviously as we go through, I'll point out some of the features of the site, but please bear in mind it's all free, it's all freely accessible, and that sort of sets us apart from some of the other paid for websites where you have to pay a subscription. We're sure that we're going to continue to be funded until at least 2020, and I'm confident that that will carry on beyond 2020. So last year we did an exercise to tie in with the release of the Career Statutory Guidance and the Gatsby benchmarks, and we've mapped Careerpilot to each of those things and show how using Careerpilot in your school or college can help meet those different career statutory guidance and benchmarks. And so they're freely available to download. Again, they're on the website, and we can send you those as printed versions as well. So having spoke to careers advisors in our local area, it became obvious that these are the things that they've been using the site for. So on the site, there's an area where students can save what they've been looking at, and it's called Career Tools. And so I'll point some of the features out, but basically on the site, when students look at job sectors, they can record the job sectors they're interested in, or if they're interested in a particular provider, they can record that as well, or they can log the skills that they've obtained by using HE Skills Map or Pre-16 Skills Map, and that's a series of questions where they fill in their experiences so far, and it will generate a set of skills that they've got, because you probably realise that when you're working with young people, if you ask them the skills that they've got when they're ready to start writing their applications or personal statements for university, it can be quite hard for some of them. So the HE Skills Map and Pre-16 Skills Map are there to try and get students to come up with the skills that they need to talk about when they're applying to courses or jobs. The advisor comments is a new function that allows advisors in schools or tutors, if they are having one-to-one meetings with students, alongside the report that the Career Tools generates, you can have some really detailed conversations with those young people, and it's a space to record those conversations. So I'm not sure, there probably are other systems in place, but it just means that everything is in one place if you need to bring up anything, and it's saved year on year. So if the student starts using Careerpilot in year 7, the report and their career tools will follow them through. There's tons of stories, stories of people who might not otherwise have considered going to university, or stories of people who have been doing apprenticeships. They are mostly from YouTube, so that's one thing to consider. If YouTube is blocked in your school for any reason, you will have to get the videos whitelisted. We've got tons of resources in the advisor zone, and there are PowerPoints and worksheets that can be downloaded and edited. So that's something that careers advisors have been using. And if you do get involved in any parents' evenings or any interactions with parents, the Parent Zone is ideal for that, because you can direct parents to that website and show them that there's lots of information on there. Just university focused. There's a whole range of information about apprenticeships and how students can find apprenticeships, and there are videos about people who are currently studying apprenticeships and so on. Sorry, let me just, somebody's just said the chat box is in the way. Let's try that. And so apprenticeships is one area that you can direct people to use when they're using Careerpilot. There's also a volunteering page where students can go in and find out about volunteering. So obviously this is quite a big thing now for students who want to find a place at university or add to their CV. So there's a whole section on there about how to find voluntary work, how to apply, that kind of thing. And again, links to relevant videos that students can try and find. And then just to bring you back to what I was saying before about the site having two parts. So the students can go in and find information from the home page, which looks like that. But then the career tools section is really where they can fill in lots of information about themselves. They can save it. And that's the bit that you can see as an advisor when you're having one-to-one conversations. If they've already spent some time on Careerpilot and bookmarked various things, then you can see that when you're talking to the students. But not only you as a careers advisor perhaps, but tutors and other staff within your institution. And each of those things feeds into the new reporting zone. So the job sectors is a part of the site that Year 7 upwards have been using for quite some time now, and the students can either go in by job sector, or they can go in via a subject, or they could go in with a quiz. So this was new this September. There was a lot of work done on this part of the website done over the summer. So students can now look if they're not particularly, they don't know what they want to do, and this gives them a lot more starting points than what there was before that. So in terms of the job sectors, there are currently 19 job sectors, and each of those 19 has 3 different subsections. So if I just show you one of those to start with, this is the animal subsector, and within there's lots of information about how you get into that particular job sector, what it's about. There's, again, related video stories of people who work or study in that particular field. And there's links to a careerometer, which is a tool that allows students to compare different jobs. And there are also lots and lots of individual job profiles. Now, this time last year, the student would then have clicked on a link and it would have taken them to the National Careers Service website. But now all of that has been brought in-house because we've got the data from the National Careers Service. And so now we've been able to manipulate that data, and so it looks a lot nicer. So if you probably know, it went all black and white and very gov.uk looking, whereas now we've got all the data from the National Careers Service, and it makes it much more user-friendly for the students. So I've now drilled down into the job profiles linked to the animal job sector, and this is where students can add this to their career tools. And you can now see lots and lots of different job profiles in terms of salary, what entry requirements are required, if it's a growth area, so if it's likely to grow in the future, all based on current up-to-date LMI information or information that's been taken from the National Careers Service. Not only that, but if the students have completed the skills map, that will appear, this pink box is showing you that if they've completed the skills map, it comes up. So not only do they see the skills that are required for the job, but they can compare that in real time to the skills that they've added to their career tools. So again, that's a really good conversation starter, or for them to be confident to think, right, okay, well, if this job requires this set of skills and I've got these skills, then I'm really well suited to that particular job. So Tiff's just asked me a question. When a student adds this to the My Job sector, is there an account that they need to set up to enable this? So no, Tiff, as long as they register, and we do encourage all students to use the site to register, Whenever they register as a student, completely free, all of this can be saved. And the only thing they need to remember is their password and how they logged in, so the email address that they used to log in. And the only thing is, if they forget their password, there is a forgotten password tool. So it's just, if you can try and get students to try and remember their email address and enter it correctly, because otherwise they won't be able to receive a forgotten password email. And Gordon's just asked, can LMI be broken down to smaller regions or is it national? So at the moment on these pages, it's based on the south of England, so the growth areas. There is a part of the website that does break it down to smaller regions. So there is that, but it's in the jobs and careers section. This 7% here that's in green, that's based on kind of the south of England area. So that's the job sectors. Again, trying to get students all the time to bookmark their pages so that it appears in their career tools, and they can say whether they're definitely interested in that or if they're just exploring it. And again, if you're an advisor and you've got a whole group of children doing this, you can quickly see in the reporting zone if there are particular job sectors that are in fashion. And if that's the case, if you're somebody who has to organise job fairs or careers fairs or people coming in to talk about their jobs, this is really useful data because you can see within the reporting zone what the students are interested in and try and tailor any interventions to suit, which really meets with Gatsby and the benchmarks. So for a student, if they're looking at what they've chosen recently, all they need to do is click on Career Tools, and this is now showing them the things that they've looked at. And this might change year on year, but as you can see, this person has looked at the animal job sector, but they've also looked at education and training. And not only that, but it also logs which job profiles they've looked at. So again, if they want to go back and look at this at a later date, it's all saved there for them. Or if they are having a conversation with somebody, again, you can both see this information. The Career Tools also shows the results of the job sectors quiz. So if they completed that, that will have generated some job sectors, particularly for people who are not sure what they want to do. And again, all of this is saved within their Career Tools, which then feeds into the reporting zone. Other things that feed into their report and their Career Tools is their qualifications. So they can use it in order to log their qualifications. This is useful for staff as well because it quite clearly shows the difference and the progression between different qualifications. So for instance, you might have GCSE students in year 10 and 11 who are working on their GCSEs, but they can start to see what leads on from that. So all the equivalent level 3 qualifications. And so they might be aware of A-levels because that's on offer at their school, but they might not be aware of the other equivalent qualifications like apprenticeships and vocational qualifications. So to map out their route is something that's quite powerful for some of them to see which pathway they might want to take. There's also the Find a Provider section, and this is where students can find courses and find providers. And again, if they want to tag them or bookmark them, that will appear in their report as well. So as I said, students should register and hopefully that shouldn't cause too many problems. Once they've registered, the next time they go in, they sign in as a student. They can work through their career tools, populating them as they go. And once they've completed all of those things, they end up with a nice report. This is just a screenshot of the skills map, which I referred to before, which again is a really powerful tool for students to find out what skills they have. They simply select the things that they've been involved in, and then they will be told what skills that they relate to. They're then also shown a grid which shows them the ones that they've answered the most questions for. So for instance, this person has answered 6 questions, and that shows them that they've got a high match for organisation and planning skills, but perhaps they've only answered 2 questions where leadership was an element. And so you might want to say, well, actually, this job requires a certain amount of leadership or flexibility. So let's think about some of the things that you might do to try and improve those things. And remember when I showed you the screen before, that ties up where they can compare a job sector with the skills. So it all appears in one place. If they don't feel that they've covered all of their examples, or they want to add an example or an encounter with a business, a work experience placement, the opportunity is to do that as well. So they can put in their own examples of things that they've done, and they can self-select the skills that has allowed them to demonstrate. And again, that then feeds into the skills bank as well. They can then go that one step further and record what job they're interested in doing or course they're interested in doing and tick the skills that they are needed. And so they're now starting to build up a picture and a plan of how they suit these particular jobs and courses. And then there is a function on the site as well that allows them to start thinking about ways that they could write about these skills in order to complete a CV or a personal statement. And there are links to CV builders on the site where they can just simply copy and paste from this site and put that into a CV or personal statement. There are examples on there as well, just before I go from there. So we've come up with some examples for different courses or apprenticeships, and so they can look to see what a good example is, and again, all the time trying to help them when it comes to applying for the next step. So just to show you, this is what their report ends up being. So this is just a snapshot of the report. A snapshot's taken at the end of each academic year. So if they are using it every year, it will appear as a snapshot. And I'll talk a bit more about the reports in a bit. So the parent zone, just to highlight that to you as well, that is, get to that from the homepage on the Careerpilot page. It's just a simple link to the parent zone. So this is the one where we say if you've got a parents' evening, you can direct parents to the site, and it should be fairly straightforward. But if you've got somebody who wants to know a particular question, it's usually answered there. It does link back to the student site, but some of it is, or most of it is fairly specific to the parent and what they might need to know. So in terms of the reporting zone, some of you may have access to the reporting zone currently, but if not, then this is what you will get, and you have to apply for this because obviously with GDPR and data sharing, because you're going to be looking at student data, you do need to be given access, and it's usually with the school or college needs to tell us that that's okay, and I'll describe that process. But if you do have access, you can look at reports by a group or by an individual. And so for instance, I've set up a training school. All of these pupils have registered, so a selection of pupils across the year. You could then, if you have access, go in and select your own tutor groups. So put these students into a tutor group, or if you've got a particular interest group, pupil premium or whatever that might be, you can set up your own groups and select the students that need to go in those groups, and then you can download various reports. So any of those career tools sections can be downloaded, and so for instance this one is the job sectors report, so you could simply print off or download to Excel the job sectors that students in a particular group are interested in. The same goes for qualifications or providers. So any part of the career tools can be looked at, and you can edit and filter the Excel spreadsheet as you wish. The same goes for an individual. So if you are working on a one-to-one basis with an individual, you can go in and look at their report, and you can also add any comments. So if you have had a one-to-one conversation with a student, this is where it's now called advisor comments actually, but this is where in the comments section you can type in what you've done with them, and you can also put links to various websites. So John's asked how many members of staff can have admin access. So any number of staff can have admin access. You just have to be careful that if you set up members of staff with admin rights, they can also set up members of staff. So there just needs to be some clarification, as it obviously it has to be people within the school. There's a different levels of you can set somebody up with admin rights and they've got full access, but you can also set up members of staff as teachers and they have similar rights, but they are not allowed to set up other members of staff. So usually what we recommend is that one person of staff is the admin and then they give teacher access. But if to make things a little bit easier in schools or colleges, if there's maybe 4 to 6 different admins, then they can all set up their own members of staff. And the process for getting access to the reporting zone, I think I've got a slide coming up to show you this, but But this is it. So yeah, I'll talk through that in a minute. And is there a section for them to record events and visits they participate in? Yeah, so Julia has asked, is there a section for them to record events or visits? So in the skills map, and there's a post-16 and a pre-16 version, there is the add example facility. And what we're saying is that that's a really good place to put anything that they've been involved in. So if they've been on a campus visit, if they've been involved in something that the Sun's offering, that would be a really good place to record what they've done. And at the same time, they can select any skills that they think that has allowed them to demonstrate. So in answer to Gordon's question, what is a process for getting access to admin reports? So if you are interested in accessing the data at the back end, quite simply, we send you a data sharing agreement, and the data sharing agreement is the legal side of things that make sure that we're meeting and you're meeting the GDPR regulations. So we send it to the school or college via you, if it's you that's asking for access. The school or college then nominates a keeper, which could well be the person who has the admin rights. The keeper of the password is set up by us. All we need is SLT to tell us that that's okay. Somebody from senior leadership will sign the data sharing agreement. They will nominate the admin person or the keeper. The keeper is set up centrally here. You will then receive an email with a password that allows you to go in and be set up as an advisor. And then once that person has been set up, if they have admin rights, they can then set up other staff users. But as I said, you might just have to be diligent and cautious that not everybody's set up with the same admin rights. You might just want to set them up as teachers rather than admin, because they can then also go and set up other people. So it's completely up to you how you do that. And then they can set up their own groups and tutor groups and so on. But it's worth bearing in mind all the time that staff can't set up students, only students themselves register. If you do have admin rights, you can go in and look at students' users and check that they've put in the correct email address and year group and so on, but they have to register themselves. So that does take away some of the admin sort of things behind it. So in terms of what to do after today, become familiar with the site. If you want to register as a student, it's really important not to use your email address, because you might need that to be set up as an advisor. So when you use it as a student and you want to register and use the career tools, it's important that you set up yourself with a fake email. So the way to do that is to put the suffix @nomail.com, and that will allow and put yourself into training school. Because obviously if you register and put yourself in your school, you will appear in the data as a student. So try and remember following today, if you do want to go in and use the site as a student, to set yourself up as a dummy student. If you want to access a reporting zone, then you can do that through the advisor zone. And make sure students register. When they do register, make sure that they put themselves in the right year group and the right school. We have had students that haven't. Again, if you've got access to the reporting zone, you can sort that out, or you can get us to do that. There is a helpline, a Careerpilot helpline, which is a Bath number. But if you contact us, we can usually put some of these things right. And there is a forgotten password facility for students, but that relies on them having remembered to use the right email address. So if you are interested in receiving any free materials, or if you are interested in accessing the reporting zone, you can do that through the advisor zone, the advisor section of the site, or you can just email us directly, and the website, the contact information is on the website. We can also deliver staff training. If you are further than an hour away from Bath, it would have to be a webinar.
Hello. So as mentioned earlier, Sun have developed a Year 10 Careerpilot workshop that as a team we deliver in schools. As you can see from the slides, from the slide just up there, there's a list of aspects that we cover in the workshop. So it's a very interactive workshop. The students use computers, there are games and quizzes. and we found that they've been really well received. But this is just an example of how we've kind of implemented Careerpilot in different schools, different schools for the Year 10 workshops, and then different colleges for the Year 12 and 13 one-to-ones. So we've also developed these one-to-one sessions. They're about an hour in length, but we do try and fit them to what the sixth form or the college, to the sessions that they can give to us. And these sessions are for NCOP students who are unsure about where they would like to progress after leaving sixth form or college, and they've got absolutely no idea, no destination planned in. So these sessions are delivered by Sun project facilitators, and we've received full training by the Careerpilot team. So they're just a couple of examples of how we've implemented Careerpilot in schools and colleges. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the box. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate taking time out of your busy schedule.